Ah yes, the intro message. You cannot get past this for B0 frames, which is actually 176 frames. And one of my biggest pet peeves with so many ROM hacks out there is nobody ever modifies that B0. Swag points. When I first started creating my ROM hack, inevitably you begin building structures that do not exist in the original game, and then you eventually start learning how some objects or sprites react to said constructions, and there was never really any programming to handle them. One interesting thing is, if you have a, say, carryable object, such as this P-switch, and try to kick it against this pipe object has actually two solid tiles in its columns, it would do as what you would think it should do, kick it out. Similarly, if you are looking at just a one single solid wall object, again, releasing a carryable object would do what you would think it should do. But there's an interesting wrinkle in all of this. If you add Yoshi, which now Yoshi's hitbox of where you're spawning carryable sprites is slightly further. What would happen if you were to spit a carryable object into a double solid tile object? And notice it gets stuck. So fun fact, I don't even bother to try to fix this in my ROM hack because this happens in the vanilla game. Alright, and then we can ask the same question, what happens if Yoshi spits out a carryable object if there's only a single column of solid objects? And it just goes right through. This is how the original vanilla game is programmed. Swag points. Alright, one would argue that this is the earliest point in the game where you could actually shell jump. Okay, one of the interesting things again about the vanilla game is these slanted pipes. You will find that you can never get underneath them, and the reason for that is simple. If Mario were to access this from underneath, weird things would happen. So not even in the vanilla game did Nintendo finish programming what would happen if Mario bonks his head on this 45-degree angle. Swag points? Nah, I don't think that's really cool. Oh ho ho! More swag. Alright, now when I hit a message box, you might notice that it creates this black square and prints it out. How this is actually being accomplished is layer 3. Now in short, the background could be called layer 1 and then the foreground is typically layer 2. However, layer 3 is anything that would be over that. So if you look up at the top, the status bar is using layer 3. So every single frame, the game is computing everything that would need to be displayed on the status bar. So when we open up a message box, it is actually printing those letters with layer 3 as well. Alright, so Yoshi's Island 4, we have this new effect, the tides, which is actually also layer 3. Now, the tides is not the only layer 3 effect. There's also mist, fish. But one thing you'll never see is a message box in the same section that has a layer 3 effect. Do you know why? Would you like to take a guess? So if we hit a message box, notice, oops, all layer 3 gets disabled. And so one more question, what do you think happens after I get out of the message box? Oops. The game is plain and simply not programmed to check if it needs to reactivate a layer 3 after a message box is loaded. Now, how do message blocks actually work? Now, each message block can have up to 2 messages per level. But the way that the game executes this is based on the X position of the message block itself. If it's placed on an odd or even column, that will determine which message it draws from. This level, however, is unique because you might notice if we read the message, it says how, oh hey, this is Yoshi, I'm not at home. So this begs the question, okay, what would happen, do you think, if we brought Yoshi to this level? So if Mario is on Yoshi, the message block now says something completely different. Now the inner programmer in me would have to test, if Yoshi is just in the level, what would happen if we're off of Yoshi and hit the message block, and we see it reverts back to actually the original message 1. There's a single RAM value that says whether or not Mario is on Yoshi, and the message block tests that exact RAM address. Very simple. Now it is true they could have coded this message block to be like, alright, if Yoshi exists in the level. Now even though we can say that in a simple English sentence, it would have taken a lot more coding than checking a single RAM address. Because what we would have to do is first go through every single sprite that is spawned, and then check that against the table of which ones could be Yoshi. Remember, there's different colors of Yoshi as well, and then see if that exists. Keep in mind, even on this single screen, all 4 of the birds are sprites. The smoke coming out of the chimney is sprite, the fireplace, the message block, and even the fact that we can exit the stage on the side is also a sprite. Now the thing is, Yoshi can go to pretty much any level in this entire game except for castles, ghost houses, and switch palaces. When the Nintendo loads up various graphics, a lot of them are used for what I call Yoshi safe tiles. So for example, the extending of Yoshi's tongue, or the fireballs, or the wings if he is flying. Now as we can see, if we have Yoshi, we have this cute little cinematic, if we don't button mash past it, of Mario jumping off Yoshi. Now from a programmer standpoint, the most obvious reason why we would not want Yoshi in this is because ghost houses and castles and switch palaces load different graphics in those Yoshi safe tiles. I promise I'm not going to point out every graphical flaw that exists in the vanilla game, but if we jump into the lava and die, we see that the lava actually has priority over Mario. However, if we die close enough in the lava to these foreground tiles, we'll actually see pixels of Mario that are covered by the lava but have priority over the foreground tiles. Oops. Here's another vanilla coded problem, if you will. Once we tag a checkpoint and go through to another section and happen to, pass away, no matter how many sub-screens we go through, the checkpoint has to spawn Mario at some location in the base level. Which is why, even with checkpointed levels right before doors, it has to spawn you in this before you go onto the sub-screen. Now assuming that we could smuggle a Yoshi in, notice that right off the bat, the tongue tiles are loading from different graphics files. But also the flame sprite are also going to load from different values. How did I kill that and then get wrecked by it? That's interesting. Oh yeah! Swag points, baby. Now I would say a cooler place to shell jump is... I'd say a cooler place to shell jump is right there. Swag points. Another fun ROM hacking fact. These Rip Van fish swim like homing beacons. But what do you think would happen if there's no water in the level? So if there is no water in this glorious water level, the Rip Van fish sprites are honestly pretty useless. They can't swim anymore. They can only scurry along the ground and then also, as you see, plunge to their doom. Totally possible to activate. Although you actually do still need the P-switch for the hidden door to actually appear. Alright, fun fact, the Big Boo actually has no hitbox. Mario cannot be harmed by it. So as you can see, no hitbox whatsoever. When it comes to sprite spawning and scan lines, notice that the second I spawn the fourth one, that third one disappears. But it still exists, it's just not rendered. I feel compelled to show off, unlike Mario Maker that redefines a lot of rules, these gray platforms, and indeed all platforms, are sprites, and the shell, this carryable sprite, is also a sprite, but very often there's not sprite-to-sprite interaction calculating. So if I were to drop this on, say, this object, it does exactly what you think it does. But if I were to drop it on this platform, it just falls right through. Swag points. Alright, so quiz number 2. Do you think this moving platform is an object or sprite, and what happens when we drop a shell on it? If you guessed sprite and that it falls right through, you got it right. So one interesting thing you might see with the different colors of pipes here, the color of the pipe is actually dependent on what screen it is. Okay, so to show off the colors of the pipes, if we are on the first screen, all pipes would be of that color, but then the second we move on to the next screen, it would then be choosing from a different palette, and we cycle through 4 different palettes before it would reset back to this color here. So the question is, what would happen if we put a pipe right here, which is actually straddling screen 0 and screen 1? Now, if you guessed that the pipe palette would be split, you are correct. Alright, another fun fact here, because we're actually having 2 layers used. Layer 1 is being used on the static foreground tiles, and then the other foreground tiles that are also solid, that are scrolling back and forth, are now using layer 2. So actually, we cannot, on levels like this, we can't have backgrounds. But you might say, well wait dude, like what do you call the bricks in the background? And to that I will tell you, that my friends is layer 3, which is also why it cannot be as detailed. Alright, so now knowing what you know now, this moving skull platform is a sprite. So what do you think would happen if you place a carryable sprite such as a shell on it? If you guessed, it'd fall right through. Good job. Well, that's an interesting combo. Oh my goodness. Alright, here's a question. If Mario runs, he can then wall run on these little critters. But the question is, alright, what would happen, do you think, if I throw this shell up in the air in this exact column and then begin wall running, and the shell then falls onto Mario's grasp? Mario catches it in midair and stops his wall run. So there you have it. Come on, you can do it, Mario. Swag points. Try to convince me that Nintendo did not create an auto level right there. We find ourselves with a new enemy here. This sumo who kind of, runs back and forth, knocks down a little lightning sprite, falls to the ground, and then boom, does this really cool effect. So my question is, this is what happens when that little lightning sprite hits a flat surface. So my question is, what do you think happens if the ground is not level? If your guess is does absolutely nothing different, good job, because it's not programmed to react to any surface. Swag points maybe? Oh, accidental swag points on that one. Onward to the dangerous but tasty Chocolate Island. So this fishing boo has one of the jankiest and most bizarre hitboxes of all time. I kind of refuse to ever use one in any Kaizo level ROM hack I ever do. It's just like, no. Swag points maybe? No. Here we actually do see another auto level that Nintendo was kind enough to program for us. you just hold down on this one. A little bit of swag with points maybe there. Alright, so fact number 1. This is a vertical level, and if we were to, say, tag a goal tape, it would crash. You cannot trigger a goal tape stage clear on a vertical level. That's a no-no. The orb sphere, which will automatically clear the level. Point number 2, notice we have 97 bonus stars. It is impossible to get any bonus stars by triggering this goal sphere sprite. But notice what happens once we defeat that. It triggers this Bowser Earthquake sequence. So here is a very interesting fact. If you had actually somehow triggered the bonus game, that is getting over 100 bonus stars, triggered that bonus game, it would not have triggered the Bowser Earthquake sequence. Who knows, maybe Nintendo knew this, and so that's why they actually put that unique goal sphere sprite right here, so that they knew they could guarantee it would trigger the earthquake and they wouldn't have to throw in extra coding. And that's all she wrote. I'm sorry, Mario, but the princess is in another castle. So fun fact, the princess sprite that is used through this entire credits are pulled from 4 different graphics. So first of all, we have this sprite right here of the princess that is currently riding Yoshi. That is a specific set of graphics. We have the princess walking is pulled from a different set of graphics. And then the princess waving is another set of graphics. It's just crazy. Also, fun fact, this screen right here, it pulls the level data from the Yoshi house. So in a ROM hack, if you were to change that, it would look like whatever you change that level to. The thing is, their walking is scripted, so it will walk where they're walking. There isn't any sprite or object detection if you make the ground all weird. Here we have it, one of the finest Mario games ever crafted. But thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, this is Great Games Before Your Time.